Look, I mean, the bottom line is I truly think this is a moment of historical opportunity. This can be a turning point in the history of Lebanon. I compare it, if you wish, to what happened with the Taif Accords, which ended 15 years of civil war in Lebanon. Politicians had failed, right? But then regional developments allowed change in Lebanon and the Taif Accords. I think we have something very similar today. If you look at the regional dynamics, a fundamental change in the regional dynamics, all the way from Gaza to Syria to what happened in Lebanon, the so-called axis of resistance. We're witnessing the demise of the axis of resistance. And as a result of that, that created opportunity in Lebanon to change things up. So what we have is what I call Shihabism coming back. We had a president called Fuad Shihab who believed in state institutions, the rule of law, and building the state, and power and justice. President Joseph Aoun is similar in terms of that outlook. And he's bringing Prime Minister Nawaf Salam, who completes him, who's now been nominated. Why do I say that? Because Nawaf Salam comes from the ICJ. He's been a diplomat representing Lebanon in the United Nations. So he's a man of law. He's a lawyer. He's a man of law. So both men combine what you need to help rebuild Lebanon.
Okay, it's so nice to hear you, Dr. Saidi, being optimistic about Lebanon, because you've been very candid with us for many, many years about Lebanon. And you've been very frank about the challenges and your pessimism about Lebanon. But what has to happen for that optimism to actually become real? What steps have to happen? And you've been a Minister of Economy, so you've been in the room. What has to happen?
Clearly, security stands as the first item on the agenda. You've got to reach a permanent ceasefire in the south. You've got to stabilize security in Lebanon. And that's the importance of having President Joseph Aoun, who comes with 40 years in the army and services. So we have that. But then you've got to get on to the main item, which is how do I ensure the reconstruction of Lebanon in terms of areas that were destroyed, from the south to the Bekaa Valley to the southern suburbs, but also address the big problems we have in terms of infrastructure. Here I am in Lebanon, on Beirut. We've got 2 to 3 hours of electricity. You cannot run a modern economy on 2 to 3 hours of electricity. You're sitting in Abu Dhabi at a future energy summit, crypto, etc. You know how important it is to have a sustainable source of energy and electricity. So those are priorities. So reforming, restructuring the state-owned enterprises that provide you with electricity, water, and other public utilities is going to be critical. And at the same time, you've got to have fiscal reform, you've got to have debt sustainability, because let's remember, Lebanon fell into a deep crisis because of unsustainable monetary exchange rate and fiscal policies. So that has to be undone. And it also means you're going to have a new team at the central bank. The current team their mandate finishes in June. So this is an ideal opportunity really to nominate a new governor of the central bank, prepare for a new team by June, and maybe earlier would be better. And you need a government which is mainly, I think, of technocrats. That's what we need. You're thinking about reforming, you're thinking about reconstruction. You need mainly technocrats, not politicians. We've had enough of politicians. We've seen the result of their action over the past 10 years. That has to end. And I think the spirit I now feel among Lebanese, whether it's in Lebanon or expatriates, is all that this is a moment of change and that we're willing to participate. Remember that we're one of the few countries in the world that has the human capital able to do so. We've got the talents, and we know what types of reforms are required. So you're going to have accountability of the past. You're going to have to combat corruption. But we know where the dens of corruption are. We know what the reforms are. So that's what leads me to be, let's say, cautiously optimistic. They have to pick up and come back. No, it doesn't have to happen overnight. There are over 440,000 Lebanese in the UAE, I understand. That's nearly 10% of the population. What you need is a combination of two things. One is that we use that network of Lebanese who have access to capital, technology, companies, entrepreneurship on a global basis, which you mentioned. And we need to provide conditions for some of them to come back and work out of here and revive businesses and entrepreneurship on the ground here. I think both are feasible. But of course, for people to come back, they're going to say, I want the rule of law. I want to have public services. I want to ensure that whatever new political paradigm set up is sustainable, that we're not going to have surprises, that I'm going to have security, that my airport, ports, and all will function, that I have access to the internet, it's high speed, etc. G5 to G6, not G2 and G3. So all of that needs to happen. And I think they will come back. I mean, they're very mobile. They're able to. And you need to create the conditions. And I think we're able to create the conditions. So I'm optimistic on that side.
Last question is in terms of the next 100 days. You've got these two new guys, a new president, a new prime minister. Yes. You mentioned them. First 100 days, what's the playbook?
Have a permanent ceasefire. Form a government of competent, experienced people. Signal that you want to restructure state institutions. Undertake monetary and fiscal reform and reform of the state-owned enterprises so that you have the public utility services, and signal to the rest of the world that Lebanon is going to get reintegrated, in particular into the Arab world and into the GCC. I think that is critical in my view, because the people, businesses and countries that are going to reinvest in Lebanon and help it reconstruct are mainly the Gulf countries.
Well, tell me about the UAE and Saudi Arabia, countries you know well. What role can they play?
I think those two countries, which are the biggest in the Arab world and the most interested in Lebanon's security and reconstruction, I think are major players. It's not only the matter of providing financing for reconstruction. You're going to have a package, right? You have an agreement with the IMF, World Bank, and others, and you're going to have some co-financing. And you're going to have a lot of that financing is going to have to come from the Gulf countries led by Saudi Arabia and the UAE, Qatar, and Kuwait and others. They know the country well. Many of them have already invested in the country. But again, you need to give them reassurance. So they will come in and invest. And I think the very positive thing is, remember that Saudi and the UAE know how to build infrastructure. You're living it right now in Abu Dhabi. And that is what we need right now, apart from the political aspects. But that is what we need right now. So they know how to build it. They know how to build performing infrastructure, transport, logistics, power, water, waste management, and all the rest. So we're not saying throw away your money, because we're telling them, come and bring your companies to help us rebuild. So if you wish, it's much more partnership that we're talking about, as opposed to dishing out money, which in the past got corrupted away. So I think that again is another reason to be optimistic, in that they know the country. This is not telling them, come to Mars and develop a base. They know the country. It's next door. You need to recreate the trade and financial links that got cut off. So all of that, I think, means that you have a combination which is ideal for the future.
Selfishly, can I go skiing in Farai Mazar soon? It's winter. It's ski season.
Oh, you can come right now. I mean, it's there. There's plenty of snow, and it's secure. There are no issues. Yeah.